When I was there in June, I spent about half of my time in the West Bank. And my strongest thought in my first day in the West Bank, which never changed, and I spent time in the big cities, and I spent time in settlements, and I spent time in all kinds of places, was, oh, this is what the American South would have felt like in the 1940s or 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think I had not been prepared for was its visual immediacy. That's why I asked you what it looked like. So an example, in the sort of simple way we talk about it, West Bank is run by the Palestinian Authority. There's actually areas A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Area A is run by the Palestinian Authority to a large extent. B is in a complicated way shared. C,
Mm-hmm.
which is 60% of the land mass, roughly, of the West Bank, is just governed by Israel. The Palestinian Authority cannot govern there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I noticed often in C was trash. In the areas of C where Israelis live, trash is picked up, it looks great. In the areas where Palestinians live or move, trash is everywhere. The other thing that was so visible was water. The easiest way I found to tell—
The politics of water and the architecture of differing water access is intense.
The easiest way to tell if you were looking at a Jewish or Palestinian settlement, city, village, was whether or not there were water tanks on the roofs.
That's right.
Because the Palestinians get less water. The water is off on some days in many parts. When I was there, the water allotment had been recently cut. And so the Palestinians have these water tanks everywhere and need to store water for the days when they're not getting it. I have sympathy for the narratives of how everybody got here. But I felt very little sympathy for where here was. I mean, you can say what you want about Gaza and Hamas. This is the West Bank. It is the Palestinian Authority. At the time I was there, Smotrich had cut the amount of revenues that Israel was passing on of the Palestinian Authority's own taxation, so they weren't being able to pay the people they employed. They're the largest employer. The place was being squeezed, right? And I went around the West Bank and I thought, if what I cared about was security, this is not what I would do, right? I would not want people unpaid. I would not want people angry about water. Israel's a desalination superpower. They have the capacity to move water around, and they do for their own settlers. You hear a lot from here about security. There, it felt like that was certainly not the only agenda that was being pursued.
You know, I think also part of that architecture is a stultifying of life, day-to-day life, and a sense of possibility. An architecture that tells you to stay in line. And an architecture that tells you that if you step out of line, this is what will happen. You know, I look at this history, Ezra, as one mistake after another, one injustice after another, one refusal and miscue after another. You know, it doesn't begin in October 7th. It doesn't begin in 1948. It extends back in history. And the only solution, again, I don't see it in the offing. The only solution is a real partition that is secure, just, and lends dignity and possibility to both peoples. And right now, that sounds like the greatest fairy tale of all time. And you don't hear it very, very often or at all in the political conversation in Israel or
when I talked
Palestine.
to Palestinians there, what they felt was happening was not mistakes, but a policy project. And what they believe the policy project was.
It is a policy project. And the politics, and Ezra, the politics of Israel are being led by the just as the kind of pioneers post-1948, what was then called labor Zionism, was the dominant spirit and political ethos of the country for all its mistakes and worse. Right now, in many quarters, the dominant ethos, even though they are far from, they're a distinct minority in the country, is the ethos spirit of the settlers. Naftali Bennett, who is quite likely to be the main challenger to Bibi Netanyahu, is, to say the least, pro-settler and pro-settlement project. He doesn't live there. He lives in Ra'anana on the Mediterranean coast, north of Tel Aviv. He's a town filled with kind of tech people. But his political ethos, his political ideas, his spirit doesn't reside with Tel Aviv liberals. It resides elsewhere.